My parents grew up in the Jim Crow South. They knew where people had been lynched. They knew that it was always a possibility.
Mm.
You know, that was Monday through Sunday.
Prove to me that you are alive.
That they sort of hijacked the term woke. I talked to
Yeah.
one of these spiritual leaders on the show about this because I remember, 15, 20 years ago, being woke was a good thing, right? Like, you're woke, it was a good thing.
Right, you're
These
aware. You're aware.
Yeah, these were the free thinkers. These were people thinking outside the box. All of a sudden, they hijacked the term. Now it's like has a negative connotation to it. So it's interesting that you bring that up. I'm gonna ask you this with utmost respect because you mentioned, I asked you this on the last podcast on SouLivate. Is there such a thing as a Black America? You said yes. So I want to know from you now, again, with utmost respect, because I'm an outsider, I'm an immigrant kid. How is Black America doing in 2025 under the Trump administration?
Black America depends on how you mean it. If you're talking about black culture, black culture is driving this country. Right? I mean, if only America loved black people as much as they love black culture.
Hmm.
Black culture is doing fine. Uh, black Black America is a mixed bag. Is a mixed bag because there are some black Americans that want to get ahead, so they want to jump on the winning team. So
Hmm.
there are black conservatives and black people that love everything that Donald Trump does. Uh, there are uh, black people trying to preserve our culture and uh, and get it to thrive again. There's the black militant that wants to separate. You know, black people are a mixed bag. In
Hmm.
terms of blackness, blackness is what black people is the most blackness is the most attractive part of this country.
Hmm.
The music, uh, blackness is what gave us
Pop
every
culture,
American.
pop
Yeah,
culture, period, all around the world. I
every
keep saying that,
yeah,
man.
everything except classical music. Classical music was European, but everything from from country to rock and roll to gospel to jazz to the high five to the big lips to the big behind, all of
Mhm.
it all of it uh, comes from blackness. But this is, in my opinion, what what we could do better. No, I take that back. What black people do a good job of, and this is part of being black, part of the culture of being black, is understanding white people. Black people
Mhm.
understand white people better than white people understand black people. It's in the culture because it used to be survival, right?
Mhm.
For our our, our country is about, if you look at 100 years, uh, if you look at 100 years as a chapter, our country is about 4.5 chapters old.
Mhm.
The first 2.5 chapters were pure slavery.
Mhm.
Slavery was the law, followed by another 100 years of Jim Crow laws.
Mhm.
Right. So the first 3.5 centuries, our black people are less than second class citizens by law. Black people being free on paper is younger than me.
Mm.
I'm 63, right? I was born in 61. Black people weren't fully free on paper until 1964.
Mm.
The voting rights, the Civil Rights Bill, 65 voting rights. See what I'm saying? So black people being free on paper is younger than me. So black, the state of Black America is a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag because we're not just one thing.
Mm.
We're not just one thing. Nor should we be. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? Nor should we be. But black culture is firmly embedded in being American,
Mm.
even though we don't always get the credit for it.
Mm.
You see what I mean? If you're a white person that can do black stuff, you got a head start. You know what I mean?
So you mentioned black conservatives. We have a couple of them that are notable recently. I don't know. Do you know about Jesse Lee Peterson?
Yes.
Yeah, and Candace Owens, right?
Yes.
So their argument is basically that the civil rights movement was the worst thing to happen to Black America, because they're saying that even during they're saying that the statistics show that during the even the Jim Crow law, um, American Black families were doing a lot better than, based on the percentage, doing a lot better than the white Americans, going to church, having a nuclear family, having their own community, Black Wall Street. And then the argument is that the civil rights leaders were hired by the CIA, and then came Lyndon B. Johnson, that he took the black man out of the home, because he gave the black woman the what do you call, like, the food stamps and everything like that, and then black man couldn't be in the house. So their argument is that the civil rights was the worst thing to happen to Black America. What do you think about all of that? By the way, like, I keep trying to talk to Jesse Lee Peterson. He keeps ducking me, man, because like this guy is something else, man. But I wanted to know your opinion, because this is a very, like, it's gaining a lot of attraction nowadays, with people.
One
So
of
I
the things
wanted to know what you think.
one of the things that happens is, if you'll notice, most of the people that have the opinion that the civil rights movement was terrible for black people are people that weren't in the civil rights movement. Do you see what I mean? If you grew up like my parents grew up, my mom was born in 1934, my dad was born in 1930. My dad fought in the Korean War,
Hmm.
and his commander would just tell him, you know, these people are getting medals and you're not getting them.
Yeah.
And you're not getting them because you're black. These white soldiers are getting them. That's what he grew up in.
Hmm.
So when you have people that are coming, they're fighting for your right just to be a man, just to not have to step off the sidewalk when a white person comes down the street, you're not going to be able to tell them that that was a bad thing,
Hmm.
even though food stamps made the man have to be out of the house for you to get it. Still, for the person who went from sharecropper to being able to at least walk down the street and drink out of whatever water fountain he wanted, that's a good thing. It's not perfect, right? Like, truthfully, the civil rights movement, they should have been fighting for human rights. Civil rights can be voted on again, and the powers that be played longbow. We'll give you civil rights. We know we can vote it down, and that's what they're doing. They're whittling back on the voting rights now, but we can't say it wasn't. We can't credibly say it wasn't a good thing, right? Now, for you can make that argument, but you can't make it true. Like when my parents grew up in North Carolina,
Hmm.
and they're growing up, they knew at any time a white person could accuse you of something and you could be snatched up and lose your life and nobody would ever be prosecuted.
No investigation or nothing, right?
No, that there's been thousands of lynching. Nobody's ever been convicted of it, right? So here comes civil rights that gives you a chance to get your dignity. It's not perfect, but it gives you a chance to get your dignity. That's a good thing. Part of that civil rights is James Brown singing, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." Right? That's a big moment. It doesn't solve the whole problem, but black people were always proud. But being able to say it out loud
Mm.
moves the culture forward. Doesn't mean James Brown was a perfect person, but it means that the fact that he was an artist, he was the manhood of black people while the country was trying to take black people's dignity away. James Brown was black people's dignity. Sly Stone, he dealt with drugs, but his uh, career showed a whole culture how to move out of those segregated 60s into a more free 70s. The civil rights movement was like that. It was an imperfect way of us to get to this, from this totally unacceptable thing to a more acceptable thing. Right now, we can look back at it later and go, well, Lyndon B. Johnson should have never given because they took the white man out of the house. What Lyndon B. Johnson did was shrinking the wealth gap. It was shrinking the wealth gap because it was giving black people a chance to move ahead. Not Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan said he hated big government. What he hated was those Johnson policies, right? And he started taking those away. So my parents were products of deep, thick Jim Crow. And I saw my parents and what the civil rights movement did for them, what the voice of Martin Luther King did for my parents, what Malcolm X, what Fred Hampton, what those guys did for the dignity of black people, and the way that you know that what they did was worthwhile. If it wasn't worthwhile, they'd still be alive. If Martin Luther King was just a CIA plant, there'd be no reason to shoot him, right? But Martin Luther King, what got him out of here was that he wasn't just talking about black and white after a while. He was talking about poor people. He was talking about poor people. He was planning on bringing hundreds of thousands of poor people of all races to Washington and say, here they are, deal with them. Now that's dangerous. As long as you're just talking about black and white, we can spin that. But when you're talking about poor people and now you're speaking against the war and you're inspirational, at that point, he's dangerous. Right? Fred Hampton is not just uniting black people, he's uniting Confederate flag carrying gangs, realizing who the actual enemy is. They shot him in his sleep because they were good for black people. Do you see what I mean? So black people that have things already, it's easy to look back and go, man, y'all should have done it differently. Right? Your hair is done up nicely and you got makeup on and you criticize the people that are in the thick of it. Right? We need to respect those people. Even if you think they got it wrong. That's the wrong way for a young black person to deal with the people that actually got people out of that plantation mentality. I mean, that's a bit disrespectful in and of itself, and disrespect is part of the problem. Right? We should respect our elders, even if we think that they made a mistake. But I can tell you that like my parents were exceptional because my parents grew up in the Jim Crow South. They knew where people had been lynched. They knew that it was always a possibility.
Mm.
You know, that was Monday through Sunday, right? That was the life they lived. But by the time that I was born, by the time that me and my brothers were born, my oldest brother was born in 56, 56, 57, 58. I was born in 61. Victor's born in 64. And my dad, who had every right to be bitter,
Mm.
his military service, fighting for freedom that he didn't have, not getting the medals that he should have gotten, not getting the credit that he deserved, and my mom having her dignity but not being treated with dignity, were not bitter. My dad told the story over and over again of the black man running from the posse, and he runs into the house and hides up the chimney.
Mm.
And one of the, the posse splits out, and one of them runs into the house and looks right up the chimney and looks straight at him, looks him straight in the eye.
Mm.
And then he yells out to the posse, "There's nobody in here." And they keep running, and it saved his life. And my dad would say, not all white people are bad.
Mm.
Okay? So we need to respect that generation, because my dad, my parents had every right to say, don't ever trust a white person because da 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 da. My parents came out of that with balance. Lots of people came out of that with balance, with legitimate arguments of why these laws need to change, and they risked their safety just to get the law to bend a little bit. Now, in hindsight, I think they should have been fighting for human rights, but they were fighting for civil rights. I'm not going to criticize them for it though, because they're the ones that went through it. And that's what we people that don't have to deal with that, because they did deal with that, should give them that credit minus the criticism because of respect.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That was super deep, man. So the one and I think that a big part of who you are, because you talked about it before, is that you did have the father in the house. You did have the mother in the house. What a lot of people are experiencing, a lot of Black Americans started to experience from the 70s on forward, is the father not being at home. And that caused a lot of the friction. Like, that was very detrimental to a whole community of people. So that's one of the biggest arguments, is that because the father was not around.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
people say that as if Black people just went, you know what, it'd be awesome if the father wasn't around. You know what I mean? It's like Black people are the victims of some things, right? A lot of the fathers not being around was mass incarceration.
Yeah,
Right? Black people didn't mass incarcerate themselves.
exactly.
When Lincoln says that slavery's over unless you're incarcerated, Black people didn't put themselves behind bars to be leased back out to the plantation. Right? That Black people are the victim of that. We get blamed for it. How come the Black father's not in the house? Because there's a system that takes them out.
Yeah.
Right? The Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment was good, but it also was a loophole. It started a whole other industry. Black people were no longer slaves unless they were incarcerated. So the South made it a crime for you to not have a job, put you behind bars, and then leased you back out to the plantation. Right now, you're in more danger than you were in when you were a slave, because when you were a slave, especially if you were a good slave, you were expensive. Right? Like, I was looking at some old paperwork, from my ancestry. The expensive slave was $850. Well, the master's home was only $1,000. See what I mean? So they couldn't beat that slave to death,
right?
Because he's too expensive. But once you're free and your value is taken away, you're incarcerated for. I'm not going to give you a job. You're incarcerated for not working. I'll lease you back out to the farm. Now he can beat you to death because you're not worth anything. He beats you to death and then just go get another one. Do you see what I mean? That's not because of Black people. That's not because of some kind of shortcoming that we had. When when uh, when you're not allowed, when in the 30s FDR builds the suburbs, but black people aren't allowed to live there. The only place that we can live is this place in the center of the city that we now call the inner city, that we devalue because there's black bodies there. The lack of opportunity that creates can't be blamed on black people, right? So you wind up selling drugs or doing whatever you got to do, whatever kind of crime to
Mhm.
feed your family. You're not the one that took that opportunity away. We're in such a habit of blaming black people for their problems. Like
Mhm.
black people didn't devalue their own property
Mhm.
because your property is devalued. Your state tax, your property tax that should be funding your public school, your school is underfunded. So you have a terrible education if you get one at all. You can't blame that on black people. Then they go, well, why are you so dumb? Why are you so dumb? Well, first you didn't want to. First, it was against the law to educate black people. Then you ensured that we get an inferior education. Most of the cities, it's the reason why a lot of people my parents' age only had sixth grade educations because there were no schools that went past the sixth grade, right? Then they built the suburbs, but they wouldn't allow you to integrate the suburbs. The law devalued the property, so you live a subpar life, right? There's no resources there. The schooling is terrible. Drugs are prevalent. Alcohol is prevalent. The things for you to destroy yourself are there. And then they blame it on black folks. And then the president gets shot. Here's a president that says, I'm going to give these people some help, right? And they create some programs. They create some programs. And then, so black people and poor people didn't invent cheating,
Mhm.
right? But anytime somebody cheats on a program, they go, "See, that's what happens when you," as if poor people are the only ones that cheat. These things it's easy for somebody to find somebody to blame, especially when you're comfortable,
Hmm.
right? Like take a Candace Owens. Candace Owens can make that argument from comfort because some black folks went through some things to get her in that comfortable chair.
That's a good point.
Yeah, if they don't go through that, if
Hmm.
they don't go through that, people are still slaves, people are still being redlined, people are
Mhm.
still all of those things that we've come out of. Now I agree racism is a shapeshifter.
Mhm.
Right? It's a shapeshifter. We're still suffering from some things. Schools are still there as segregated as they've
Mhm.
ever been. We can say the right thing now. We can say segregation is behind us. But if you go to an underperforming school, it's largely black and poor people, right?
Same thing in jail, man.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Racism has shape shifted, and a lot of the same things are being done in different ways, but it doesn't mean that there hasn't been progress, and it doesn't mean that the people who are doing better now because of the struggles of people before
Hmm.
should criticize them from their places of comfort.
Hmm. That's an excellent point. So one thing that I'm thinking while you're speaking is that, like, let's say my people Slavs, right? We have I notice, and I noticed this with a lot of like indigenous populations all around the world, that there is something that's called like a genetic post trauma. Do you
Mm,
believe that that exists in America with Black America?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a there is a for a lot of black folks, there's still a cultural PTSD
Hmm.
that knows that anything can happen because it has happened, especially like the generation behind mine. Like I remember when I first started seeing my first wife. She was white, lived down the street. I'd go hang out. Not a big deal for me. And it
Mhm.
was eye-opening. One night I come home and my dad was like, well, don't think that when you come home that other people don't know where you've been.
Mhm.
And I realized from where just one generation back, that behavior could have had that person strung up, right?
Crazy.
Strung up, hanging from a tree with no repercussions. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's a cultural PTSD that still exists in Black America. I was talking to some policemen. I got a chance to speak with them, and it was a program that they had, some realistic scenarios that had you firing a gun and handling the thing, and they wanted the society to understand what police officers went through, and it was really good.
Mm.
Like I did my scenario, and and there was a bulletproof glass there, but you're firing a real weapon. It was my first firing of a weapon. But the scenario that I had, I opened the door, and there was somebody on the ground with their head bleeding, and there was a person standing there with a blunt object saying, I'm going to kill him, motherfucker. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. And I'm standing with the gun, and they have you handle it. So I waited till he got ready to swing down, and I shot him once. And then when he got ready to get up, I shot him again.
Mm.
So after it was over, they're interviewing me. They said, well, do you remember anything about the person laying down? Do you remember any flashing lights at you? I said, no, I don't remember any flashing lights. Do you remember anything being said to you? No, I don't remember anything being said to me. Do you remember anything about the person that was on the ground? I said, just that his head was bleeding. Well,
Mm.
after it was over, I see the footage. I realized that the person on the ground was my stepson, who's redhead and 6'7". Like, how do you miss that?
What?
He's 6'7", redhead. I didn't realize that was him. I didn't hear him saying, Joseph, kill him. He's going to kill me. Kill him. I didn't hear him saying that. I didn't see any
That's
light flash.
crazy.
So it was eye-opening for me that in that moment, like you see police officers that shoot somebody in a flash, and you go, how come they didn't know that it was just a cell phone? Or how come?
Mm.
So that was eye-opening for me. How few details in that moment that you see. My own stepson yelling at me. He's 6'7" and redhead. I didn't recognize him.
Crazy.
But I'm telling the police officers though. I said, what's important for you is that you need to understand the mindset of the people that you're coming down.
Mm.
Because I said that my parents and lots of Black people now, when the police show up, they don't see you as the knight in shining armor,
Right.
right? Their experience, like my parents, when they grew up, when the police show up, they're just the first step of you getting grabbed before the mob grabs you and strings you up. So when you see a police officer, that's the beginning of something terrible happening. And in the same way that it's important for me to understand the mindset of police officer needs to understand the mindset of the community that doesn't see you as the rescuer.
Mm.
Because police also need to remember that the first police officers in the United States, their job was slave catchers.
Catch slaves. Yeah.
They were militias to bring these slaves back to the territory, which is why the Fraternal Order of Police, a fraternity, remembers tradition. That's why, despite what the law says, when you run from a police officer, that's license for them to shoot, even though the law says differently.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're running from, like I used to tell my kids, if you see a fat police officer, never run. We jokingly, like seriously, we say never run from a fat cop because he's not going to chase you.
Mm.
Right? Police officers, for lots of Black people, are the problem
Yeah.
in their head when they show up. And if a police officer doesn't know that, the police officer in that old mindset, they're still thinking like the old slave catchers. They just want compliance, right? They just want compliance. You do what I say you do it now. Well, there's a situation that's probably getting ready to go wrong.
Mm.
If a police officer doesn't understand the community and the community doesn't understand the police officer. I learned a ton from firing that weapon. When there's a when there's a situation getting ready to happen and you got to fire a weapon, you don't really see details, right? I didn't even recognize my own stepson, and he's yelling at me. He's calling my name. I didn't
Crazy.
hear it. I didn't see it until I saw the footage back. But a police officer needs to know that when he shows up, not just at black people's door, and a lot of people don't see them as the rescuer.
Yeah.
And there's enough police officers that misbehave to make your suspicions rational. I got one more analogy, and then I'll let this subject go. But I have an analogy. I call it doo-doo M&Ms. It's an article I wrote a while back. If you have 1,000 M&Ms, and you know that, let's say there's 20 of those M&Ms that don't have chocolate, they got doo-doo in them. Well, if you know somebody that had a doo-doo M&M, or you just know that there's some doo-doo M&Ms in there, or you had one yourself, even though there's very little chance you'll get one, you don't trust the M&Ms.
Right.
And police officers are like that. You know there's some bad ones out there. You know there are. They do too. So oftentimes you don't trust them because most black people know some encounters with police officers that went badly, or bad acting police officers.
Hmm.
Right? And if a police officer doesn't recognize that dynamic when he goes out, it's a recipe for something going wrong.
Hmm. Yeah, man. Me and my parents, like we were born in the Soviet Union, so police and any type of authority was the enemy. And even, my mom is in America, like we would never call the police. I mean, all hell can break loose. There could be a fight. Nobody's calling. That's why you will never like see a Slavic person being a snitch. You can see Italians snitching on each other. Like you will never ever
Yeah.
see somebody from the Soviet Union be a snitch, because it's like it's a sin to us. But it's very interesting what you're talking about, that because when someone always asks me like, what if something is good or evil, I always say, let's question what was the nature of this or other thing. If you talk about guns, like what were guns initially created for? Cops in America, what were they initially for? Because that's the nature of the product, let's say, right? I wanted to ask you this, because going back to the lot of talking points of these so-called black conservatives like Candace Owens and stuff, because I love the way you're breaking this down, is that the whole George Floyd incident, that George Floyd was high on fentanyl, like he OD'd, like. And that's why I wanted you to kind of speak on it, because I'm thinking that people are missing, again, what you talked about this whole time, that we're missing the bigger picture of what this meant. Like, can you break that down?
Well, law enforcement, the relationship of law enforcement and black people has a rocky foundation, right? The reason the first police officers were started was to control black people.
Hmm.
Black people trying to be free. The reason that police officers were deputized in the first place were to keep them from being free. That's at the root of it. That's in the soil,
Hmm.
right? Anything that grows from there is a product of the soil.
Exactly.
So there's been plenty of good police officers after that, but the nature of why it existed doesn't go away until we fix it. And if we don't address it, it hangs around. As it goes to George Floyd, it's an old issue to look at a black person who's interacted with the law and sum it up in terms of the things that they've done wrong. Right? Well, he was a drug addict and he was high on this and he had a counterfeit $20 bill and all of
Hmm.
that. As opposed to a person who had a knee on his neck until he was dead.
Hmm.
Right? Think about this. If if Derek Chauvin had his knee on the neck of a German Shepherd, for however long that was, until the German Shepherd was dead. Nobody would question him. Well, did the dog bite him?
Mm.
Did the dog have rabies? Nobody would question the dog. We go, he's a terrible man. Who would do that to a dog? But it's a black man, right? That had some drugs in his system. That's not unusual, right? That's not a reason to stay, put your knee on his neck until he's dead. But because we're so used to questioning the behavior of black people, we're out of whack. If that was a dog, if that was a dog that he was on the neck of, a kitten, anything besides this black man, we wouldn't question why he did it.
That's a great point, man.
We would just know that he was wrong. If Michael Vick had had women fighting instead of dogs, he'd have got suspended for 4 games instead of losing his career. And I don't say that to be funny. I say it because it's true. Right? If Michael Vick had been mean to his wife, or even violent to his wife, he'd have got suspended some games. But it was dogs, so he lost his career. George Floyd, he had a knee on his neck until he was dead. And the question is, well, he was on drugs and he did this in the past and he did that in the past. Even if he did, that's not license to put your knee on his neck until he's dead. But it's an old bad habit that some black people have in trying to get ahead, to be critical of black people. I'm not them. I'm more educated than them. Like when black people used to come up from the South, the educated, bourgeoisie black people used to say, well, that's not us. That's them. We're not part of them. That's where bougie comes from. You know what I mean? We're the sophisticated black folks. We're not them, not realizing you're in the same boat. Black people are in the same boat. Black people that are educated, have college degrees, are less likely to be employed than the white felon. That's just a terrible part left over from history. And black people don't need to be part of that dynamic where we're critical of each other as if there aren't cultural hurdles that we're still trying to overcome. Now, the beautiful part about black people is that we take what's terrible and we turn it into something likable, even when it's not good for us.
Yes, sir.
Take the N word, right? Like, we didn't invent that word. We'd have loved not to have.
Do you use it? Do you use it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Not unless it's the punchline of a really good joke or something. But black people could not interact with it. So I wrote a thing I called the N word. It's the chitlins of the English language, in that chitlins were given to black people as an insult. Right? You're a slave. We're not going to give you the good cuts of meat. We're going to give you the intestines, the feet, the tail, the brains, the ears. So black people take those guts. And like, I remember my mom, she only made chitlins on the special days. And it took so long. Get up in the morning, the house is stinking. She's pulling the membrane out of the chitlins. And then on the other side of the sink, they pull the membrane, throw it in the garbage, and then they dip the chitlins in the clean water before they put it in the pot. And that would go on all day long. And then they throw that away, and then she'd wash the clean chitlins all day long, then spend all day seasoning them, and then put them in the pressure cooker. And that was the thing that she made only on those very special meals. She put so much love into these chitlins that they were a delicacy. This thing meant to be an insult was a delicacy.
mm,
Now, it was a delicacy because it came from your mother with all of that love, right? Well, the N word is that way. Given to black people, you can't avoid it. So you take the sting out of it and you give it your way. Like I had a friend of mine, he's from Washington, D.C. He said, man, I like you, man. You my nigga, man. Love
mhm,
you. Coming from him, right? It doesn't mean that the word is good for our culture, but it
mhm,
means what it means coming from him.
mhm.
It ain't the same as when Troy from, you know what I mean, from when Cooper from down the street comes and uses it, because it's not the same thing culturally.
Mm.
It's the chitlins of the English language. My mom makes the chitlins. It doesn't mean chitlins are healthy for me,
Prove to me that you are alive.
but it means that coming from her, it means this. Coming from a slave owner, it means that.
Mhm,
From my friend, that word means this. Coming from white man down the street, it means that.
mhm,
Are we better off? Nobody eats chitlins. Chitlins are never healthy for you,
mm.
right? But if they're forced on you, they need to come this way, right? So my mom, she turns it into a delicacy. It's so much of a delicacy that other people want it, like the N word. White people hate the fact that they can't use that word,
Mm.
right? They hate the fact that you can do something that they can't do,
Mhm,
right? And truthfully, they can use it. You just can't use it without consequences,
mm.
right?
I think it's beautiful the way black people took that word and flipped it. Like, I do understand how much, how much hatred went into it initially, but if you think about it, it's like it was that one thing that the black man could control. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I'm gonna take this word and I'm gonna flip it. And I think that's why, like, Kanye did the whole KKK cape. I
Mhm.
truly think that's why he did it, because he's saying, like, I'm gonna take something so evil, something
Yeah,
that you tried to oppress me with, and I'm gonna flip it on you. Like,
I can believe that. I can believe it. I don't know enough about it, but I can believe.
yeah,
I can believe it. It's That's what black people do. Not be, it doesn't make the N word a great word. It makes something that you couldn't avoid. It makes the best out of something that you couldn't avoid,
yeah.
right? So you take it. Not only can I use it, but you can't use it anymore.
Hmm.
Like you can't use it anymore. I'm not only going to take it, but I'm making money off of it too. It doesn't make it a healthy word. It doesn't make it a healthy word, but it makes it not what it was when it was given to you. It doesn't make chitlins healthy because my mom made them, but my mom made my life better making them, even though they're not nutritious.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, even though they're not nutritious, but it was absolutely a show of love coming from my mom. Spent all day with them chitlins,
Mm.
spent all day with them. And they were only made on special occasions. And that's what we wind up tasting. You're at the table, you're not sitting there thinking that I'm eating the the intestines from the inside of the universal symbol for filth.
Mm.
Right? That's not what I'm thinking. I'm sitting there eating, knowing how hard my mom worked to make this special thing for
Mm.
us. And that's what black people do the best. We take the worst and we make the best out of it. Baggy pants,
Mhm.
prison garb,
Yeah.
right? You turn it into a fashion. Now
Mm.
everybody wants baggy pants, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like, I know that I talked to, like, this one fashion designer. I remember he was like from Europe. So I'm asking him, I'm like, where do you get your inspiration from? He's like, bro, we go to Harlem. Every time we're about to come out with something new, we go to Harlem, baby. So I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
all the fashion is coming from Harlem. So we've been here over 2 hours, and thank you so much for every single second. Like, I'm gonna just, couple more questions. I get you
Man,
out of here because we
anytime.
really been here for over
Yeah,
two
it's
hours.
okay. It's okay.
And I just want you to remember that you always have a friend here, you always have a fan here. I will support anything you're doing. I think your whole movement is very powerful, it's much needed. So I just wanted to ask you this, because I wanted to hear your philosophy on this subject. What do you think about reparations? A lot of talk about reparations, and if there was any sort of reparations, what kind of reparations should it be? Should there be any kind of reparations? Like, what does a Joseph Wooten think of reparations?
Well, let's start this way. What's the root word of reparations is repair. Is repair, right? Does it seem like there's any repair needed with the condition of the Black community as it connects with our history?
I knew you were gonna flip it somehow, man.
Yeah, but of course there is. So in the United States, if I owe you money, let's say my company owes your company money, and I pass away, that debt doesn't go away because I pass away, does it?
Right.
Somebody owes that money. Well, our country became financially rich by not paying 2.5 centuries of Black labor, not like 30 years, 40 years, 246 years
Crazy.
of free labor. Now, there was real money made. Like Black people were, I have the statistic in here somewhere. I can't. It's in that book, Black AF History. I would suggest that book. But Black people were like, it's something like we were 14 times the amount. Black bodies were worth like maybe 14 times the amount of the total expenditure of the federal government in 1860, whatever it was. The federal government made millions upon billions of dollars over 2.5 centuries without paying Black people a dime. So when Black people were quote unquote free in 1865, Black people were freed and not given a dime. They weren't given money. They weren't given land. Actually, they were given land, but they took it back. So that does some things to Black people going forward. When they finally did build suburbs, they devalued the property because we were there. Couldn't be in unions. They wouldn't sell automobiles to Black people. So, if you play Monopoly, how do you win in Monopoly? You buy property, right? Black people weren't allowed to buy property until the 60s. So white people been on the Monopoly board, they got a 3.5 century head start. And then we ask should Black people get reparations. There are some things to repair. There are some things.
So what should it look like? What should a reparations look like, do you think?
It should start with the question. We can answer the question if we ask the question honestly. Let me flip it first. Let's say that it was in reverse. Let's say Black people did this to white people for 3.5 centuries. Would white people let it go? What do you think?
Probably not, man.
Of course they wouldn't let it go.
Them Anglo-Saxons, man, they count every penny, bro.
Of course they wouldn't let it go. Now let's take a look at England. England got rid of the transatlantic slave trade in 1807. And when they did, they paid, I forget how many millions of pounds to the British slave owners. And that debt wasn't finished being paid until 2014, I think it was 2014, 2016.
Wow.
The taxpayers were paying that debt to slave owners, for those couple centuries, whatever that is. Meanwhile, in the United States, they quote unquote free Black people Who did reparations go to? The slave owners.
Hmm.
They paid reparations to the slave owners for their loss of property.
That's crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah, slave owners got money for their loss of property.
That's crazy.
Now, to show you what how things could have been different, there was when Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves first by executive order. That's what the Emancipation Proclamation was. It was an executive order. It freed the slaves of the Confederacy because they wanted to take that weapon away from the South. But if you were a slave in Kentucky or Maryland, you were still part of the Union. It didn't apply to you. So you were still a slave. Okay. So the Union slave owners were upset because Southern slave owners were making money and they weren't. So Lincoln, trying to appease it, when the amendment comes around and makes it constitutionally that black people were constitutionally free, he gives money to the Union slave owners. Well, there was a black person, a free black man, who had purchased the freedom of some of his relatives. So that technically made him a slave owner, right? So when Lincoln was giving those reparations, he didn't mention that he was black. He got his slave owner money. And because he got that money, if you look at his lineage are doctors, lawyers, college educated, success. He's an example of what could have happened had black people been compensated for all of that free labor. But because we haven't been compensated for it, we have a wealth gap a mile wide. Right? Black people weren't able to be part of unions because they were former slaves. Black people were incarcerated and leased back to the plantation because they were free without property. Right? The detriment of black people not getting anything for their freedom is well documented. Of course, there needs to be some repair. There needs to be something done, even if it's symbolic. We need to be able to get past it, because what it shows is what a lot of black people know. We're not worth as much as white people are. Right? If you look at what happens if a white person feels like they have quote unquote reverse discrimination. They don't go, well, look at the progress that we've had. That needs to be addressed right now. They sue, you get fired, whatever it is. If white people feel like they've been wronged by race, it gets addressed right then.
Especially if they Jewish, man.
But think about black folks, right? You talking about reparations, they'll go, well, progress, be patient. Things are better than they used to be. Black people are we're still suffering from what 2.5 centuries of slavery does, plus another century of Jim Crow, plus no relief from that from you being held back for that long. Right? We can't say that didn't hold people back, and we can't say that we should just let bygones be bygones. Maybe it's investments. I tell you one thing that we could do is just quote every major city has an inner city. That's not because black people went, you know what? It'd be great to live in the center of this city where there's no resources. That black people didn't do that. That's because we had no other option. Well, when the Clintons got ready to move into Harlem, they invested in that part of Harlem, brought the property value up, and now that part of Harlem thrives because the Clintons moved there.
Right.
One thing they could do where black people live, just invest in the area, bring the property value up. So we get the same, so black people get the same thing that white people get. because that's one of the ways that you still can enforce that segregation without anybody having to call anybody names. You're in the inner city because of redlining. Redlining devalued your property. Redlining's illegal now, but it didn't raise your property value. See what I'm saying? So the property tax that goes to your public school still doesn't, your public school is still underfunded. I spoke at a public school in New Jersey years ago. It was the day before the Steve Miller Band got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Actually, Steve got inducted. Steve Miller got inducted, but it was the day before I played the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I went and spoke at a school in New Jersey. I used a battery-operated keyboard, because the school was so underfunded they had no piano because they had no auditorium. They had no PA system because they had no auditorium. So I did this motivational speech to the school in the cafeteria, and I used a battery-operated keyboard. So I didn't want my keyboard to run out of batteries. I asked for an extension cord so that I could, make sure my keyboard didn't run out of batteries. And they scoured this whole school. I can't remember if it was middle school or high school, but they scoured this whole school looking for an extension cord, not a computer, not technology, just an extension cord. And this school that's supposed to be giving you a quality education was so underfunded, they didn't even have an extension cord. So I did this motivational speech and I sang these songs to the students in a cafeteria with no PA system. And these kids hung on every word. It went really well. But the point that I'm making is this school is underfunded because their community still has low property value. Low property value gets you no revenue from property tax. You see what I mean? Your property value is low, left over from when race was the law, when redlining devalued your property. Redlining is gone, but your area still has no value. Because it has no value, your schools get no resources. It does the same thing as Jim Crow, without anybody having to use the N-word, without anybody having to say anything. That is an example of a system of racism. The structure does the racism where the people used to do it. That needs repair, aka reparations. That needs repair. One thing you can do, don't call it reparations. Just bring the property value up of where these Black people live. They didn't devalue their property. Bring it up. If there's crime there, clean up the crime. Arrest people doing crime if that's what it is. But just bring it up. We know how to do it. We know how to build nations in other countries.
Exactly.
We know how to do it here too. But we're a country that loves to talk about equality more than we like to deliver it. We like to say it. We talked about freedom in 1776. But it was only freedom for certain people. It was slavery for other people. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I talked to the guy that created the Ben and Jerry ice cream. I'm gonna have him on the show, and he said something crazy. He was like, look, there's so much money in America that if we would want tomorrow, we would settle all poverty, like everybody. And he's like, not even in America, probably all around the world. He's like, we could, because there's so much money here, like with all the foreign policies, with all the foreign wars, with as much as we invest into, the weaponry and like the money is here, but yet they're not doing it. So I got two more questions for you. I
Okay.
get you out of here. Thank you so much,
Let
man.
me add to that, though.
Yeah, please.
Let me add to that. In the United States, we're a rich country. It's not the amount of riches, it's who has them. It's who has them. The top 10th, if you take the top 1% and you divide that into 10, the top 1% has more of the wealth than the bottom 90% of us. Then the top 10th of one has more than the bottom 90% of us. The top one has more than the entire middle class. The bottom 50 has 2.5% of that wealth. So it's not a matter of how much wealth we have, it's a matter of where it is. It's not
Exactly.
shared. And that's what the country has always been. Even the Civil War, they're fighting to preserve slavery, but the people who are fighting for the Confederacy, most of them can't afford slaves. They're fighting, they're they're not fighting for themselves. They're poor people. The Confederacy, they barely had shoes. A lot of times they kill a Union soldier, they steal his shoes
Yeah.
because the Confederacy was so broke. But they're fighting for this supremacy that they weren't able to be a part of.
Hmm.
That's what we still have now. A lot of the Make America Great folks are the people that need health care the most.
Hmm.
They're fighting for a thing that they're not able to participate in.
Hmm.
Right? When this bill goes through and it takes health care away, a lot of the MAGA people are going to be the ones that are going to suffer when their Medicaid and their Medicare goes away. They're fighting for an ideal that you don't get a chance to participate in. Most of us aren't in the top 1%.
Yeah.
Most of us aren't in the top 10th of 1%, but we're still arguing for a side that's not
Yeah.
supporting
I'm
us.
just I'm just talking about crazy money. Like even if you think, 200 plus billion goes to Ukraine. Now I'm from Ukraine. Ukraine is perhaps one of the most corrupt countries in the history of humanity. Like I'm the one, I'm from there. Like I could say it. They've been robbing people blind, and only the top, like Zelensky and his people are dividing this, and 200 plus billion. Like this could have went to clean up LA or clean up Allegheny and Philly, whatever. Like, what I'm saying? You drive down to Philly. I don't know if you ever been there. You go to it's unbelievable. You will never see this anywhere in the world, and if you think about the uh, the global GDP, America has like 50-60%. It's declining now, but still like, so it's like all of these billions. The money is here. We have the money to fix these
Yeah,
problems.
but it's in the hands of just a few
Exactly.
people,
Like if
right?
you think about like Elon Musk, like bro, what are you gonna do with 400 plus billion? Like I don't get that. Like my guy, like what
But
are you
his
gonna do with that?
but that's a great example though. But if you look at it, in the amassing of all of those billions, part of it is poisoning poor people in Memphis. That's
Exactly what you said
funny.
earlier.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Part
Yeah.
of it is this supercomputer that's built right next to the most defenseless people in Tennessee. And it's just poisoning them after getting rid of the oversight that would have made them have to stay within certain guidelines,
Hmm.
right? There's a window into what the problem is that not only are the millions made by a shrinking number of people, but they're at poor people's expense.
Yeah. Always.
Yeah,
Always.
it's at poor people's expense.
It's crazy. So I got two more questions for you. You are a living legend, an icon, man. Thank you again. I'll, keep thanking you for doing this. And you got to come back sometime because I could do this forever with you.
Yeah,
There's
please,
so
man.
many different subjects to talk about. So let's say tomorrow Joseph Wooten gets the key to the nation. What would you do? What would be some of the first steps that you would do to fix America? Have you ever thought about that?
Yes, yes. In fact, I was having this discussion with some billionaire friends of mine, some multimillionaire friends of mine years ago, and it started because this person was, he had a really soft heart for Chicago,
Hmm.
and there's so many killings in Chicago, and he was, I was saying, I can see that you're sincere about your feelings about Chicago. And I explained it to him. I said, Victor, my brother Victor has one of my favorite lyrics from him. He says, if we're going to talk politics, we got to talk about all of it. We can't leave nothing out.
Hmm.
And I was saying, you got to look at how Chicago got to be Chicago, how it got to be that violent. And I said, it's because when they built suburbs, The people who, the Southern uh, Dixiecrats, who were appropriating the money for FDR, said, you can build the suburbs and get us out of the Great Depression, but you can't integrate them. So he built suburbs, and Black people were only able to go to these segments in every major city. Every major city has an inner city. So it's by design, it's not by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And when they devalue that property, it makes your only option crime, right? There's no legit, I won't say no legit, makes it less likely that you're going to live the life on the up and up. And then they pump guns in there.
Right.
They give you the means to destroy yourself because you can win elections there. Police officers make more money patrolling there. They don't get paid enough. They
Mm-hmm.
make more money patrolling there. Uh, Liquor stores can make it there. Gun shops can make it there.
Right.
But uh, other legitimate businesses aren't there. So I said, Chicago happens because they won't let it be another way. I said that big high rise of crime, those high rise of crime buildings, they're still getting government money,
Mm.
right? The person that owns that building is still getting government money. So I said, and I convinced them. And so they were saying, okay, you've convinced us. They were like, so what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I didn't have an answer. I was really good at diagnosing the problem, but I didn't have an answer of what to do for the problem. And one of the things that we can do, one of the things that we could do right away is invest where we've divested.
Mm-hmm.
We've pulled resources out of what we consider the inner city. Just invest in them like you invest in the other affluent communities so that their property value has a chance to do the same thing that property value has to do in affluent cities. You can still clean it up for crime. You can go in there and do that, right? But bring the property value up, invest, bring businesses there. Give loans to people trying to start businesses, right? Fund schools like you fund all the schools, because where you find a struggling community, you find a struggling school.
Mm.
The first part that we could do tomorrow is invest where we've divested.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you, even if you think about like grocery stores,
No grocery
thinking
stores.
thinking about going to the hood, there's no proper grocery store. Like,
No, you're absolutely, man. You're
yeah,
so you're so right. You take a like I was talking to somebody today, and they were talking about the RSV vaccine, the respiratory virus vaccine, and I was like, but a person, for them to not have a respiratory problem, needs to have access to healthy food.
exactly.
So if your only option is a convenience store because there's no grocery store, if you're challenged for money, you're probably eating ramen noodles because they're 10 for $1, not because
Yeah.
they're nutritious, right? You eat them 10 for $1 because you're eating uh, food out of cans and
Mhm.
bags because you can't afford to get to the grocery store, and even if you can get to the grocery store, you can't afford to buy organic. Right? So
Mhm.
that's an economic problem that winds up playing out as a medical problem. It's larger than who gets a chance to get, who has access to the vaccine and who doesn't.
Mhm.
Right? It's again, it's that structure of racism that
Mhm.
still gets the job done, even when the racists aren't there. Like at
Mhm.
this school that I was telling you about,
Mhm.
there weren't racists in the school. If you
Right.
teach in an inner city school, you probably teach because you like kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're probably there because you like kids, because you certainly don't get rich teaching. And it's a challenge to teach in an inner city school. You teach because you like kids. But the structure of racism has devalued this property, and you get revenue for the school from property tax.
Mhm.
That's a structure. Whether there are racists around, that structure still works. That structure still deprives these people of those resources.
Yeah.
Right. Meanwhile, across town where property value is high,
Yeah.
like where I live, I went to my stepkids. They wanted to go to public school before they graduated. This is years ago. So they went to public school from the private school they were in. The public school was funded just like the private school
Mm.
because, everybody has nice big houses around here.
Right.
So, millions of dollars in scholarships came to that school. Meanwhile, right across town, this other school is suffering. They got the best track team, they got the best football team,
Mm.
but in terms of graduations and in terms of resources, they don't have them because of the structure of
Right.
racism, not because of personal racism, not because
Mhm.
there's racists walking around and using the N word, just because the structure has been built. And now that the structure is built, it gets the job done, whether they are racist or not.
Yeah, I always tell this story. In 2015, I went to the Blackfeet Reservation. And, me coming from the third world, like I got used I lived in a hood in America and I lived in a suburb. So I noticed things that you talk about, like
Mhm.
grocery stores, the quality of the product. But when I went to the Blackfeet Reservation, I was shocked. Life expectancy there for men is like 46.
Mhm.
And the stray dogs running around. I haven't seen stray dogs since I came from Ukraine. I was like, oh
Right.
my God. But the craziest thing was that while I was there, I couldn't eat or drink anything because everything had a medicinal taste to it. Right. So, and the grocery stores are beautiful, big grocery stores, they look packed. But every time I would taste something, it would taste medicinal. I couldn't pinpoint what it was. So I'm coming back from there, and there's a girl on the bus with me, and me and her start talking. So she's like, I'm on my way to DC to do this, like represent for my people, represent for the Blackfeet. So I start asking her, I'm like, listen, am I going crazy? Like, because I tasted medicinal taste like all over. She's like, nah, you're not going crazy. She's like, that's why I'm going to DC to represent my people, because something is going on in the food and the water. Like somehow they are getting rid of these people. And the health conditions, like,
Right.
brother Joseph, like I'm talking, young people, man, 30 years old, 25, whatever, like they, beat up, overweight. Like I said, life expectancy for men was 46. My mind was blown. I couldn't believe that something like this was going on in the United States of America, man.
But it's that's how we got to be the United States of America. Was first getting rid of the Indians and then subduing them to these places. And it's one of those things. If we don't recognize as a country who we've been, then we'll keep being some version of that, right? Like I have my wife's nephew has a thing that he rebuilds townhomes
Mhm.
and then he sells them, he flips them. And there was one that was on the market to be shown. And what some young people will do, they'll look to see one that's about to be shown. And then they'll get the key and go in and throw a party because they know it's empty and they know it has power,
Hmm.
right? So somebody calls him and says, "There's hundreds of kids in your property throwing a party," and they had thrown a party, and they pulled a ceiling fan out of the ceiling and they wrecked his place and that kind of thing. And somebody was saying, "Man, that's a shame. That's just un-American."
Hmm.
And I was saying, I disagree. That's very American.
Super American.
That's super. That's super American, and it doesn't seem related. It doesn't seem related. But as long as we still have the mindset where it's okay, as long as you get something for yourself, it doesn't matter how you got it. It's related. That's a very American thing, a smash and grab. Like you'll see somebody will go into a jewelry store and they'll kick the case in and grab a bunch of jewels and run, and then you'll have to, oh, what is this world coming to?
Mm,
That's very un-American. I'm like, that's super American. Like that crime, I don't know, is that a crime or is that history? Right?
mm,
Where you kick the door in and steal somebody's stuff and leave.
that's
That,
crazy.
that's a crime. It's also history. The United States. The fact that we're a long giant smash and grab
Mm,
that we built the country on top of. We didn't ask the Indians if we could have it. We
mm.
didn't ask black people if we could enslave them. Just snatch people, slaughtered people, and now we call it settling the West. Right? We're the ones that settle the West.
Mm.
Right? How do you? What does it say about that culture that looks at that slaughter and calls it settling the West? Looks at the enslavement, 2.5 centuries of enslavement and a century of Jim Crow, and calls it a dark chapter in our nation's history. Actually, it was 3.5 of the 4 chapters. Is what it was. It
Mhm.
wasn't a dark chapter. It's most of the chapters, right?
Yeah, that's so first of all, I want to apologize for not being completely on point today. Just the last few days been hard on me.
Okay.
My head's been all over the place, so I apologize for that. I want to tell you that I'm very thankful for you. I'm very thankful first of all that you did this, but the more I get to know you, the more I watch your I Matter, You Matter, um, the more I'm seeing your movement come to light, the more I am thankful for who you are. And may God bless you. Remember that you are a blessing. You're a gift, truly. We need more people like you. It's something about your energy, man. My mom, she loves watching you speak, man. And my wife and when your wife starts talking about another man, you got to pay attention, man. So you know what I mean. So I just wanted to really tell you thank you. I want to thank your parents, thank anybody that had something to do with the way you are, and again, you're always a friend. You're a true leader, so you're really someone that I would encourage, for people to take example and follow and really listen to. So we have a tradition on Prove to Me That You're Alive. We always ask the last question, so I'm going to ask you,
Okay.
what is the meaning of life for Joseph Wooten?
The meaning of life. Wow. Well,
It's
everything
for you personally.
for me personally,
Yes, for you for Joseph Wooten, what is the meaning of life?
to 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 leave the world better than I found it, to try to inspire some people, to try to make the best of my good fortune, because I've been really fortunate to have great parents, inspiring parents, talented brothers, great wife, magnificent kids. I'm about to be a grandfather in November.
Damn, congratulations,
Thank
man.
you. A lot of things are going my way. And so I'm trying to make things better uh, for other people. And so to leave things positive, I think I think that where we are now as a country, I think we're meaner than we need to be. I think there's a consolidation of power that's trying to happen, but there's an opportunity that's being created because as things get more unpleasant, it creates an opportunity for people that have an off ramp from all of this division. And I think that's what music is.
Hmm.
I think I have it uh, to deliver, and I know that I'm not the only one. There's people like me, there's people like you, and there's a lot of other people having this conversation. But for the positivity that we believe in to come to fruition, we have to believe it. A lot of us hope for it, but we don't believe it in the same. We don't believe it with the same conviction that we believe in the power of evil. Evil we wholeheartedly believe in, and goodness we hope that
Mm.
one day, and when we work for the goodness that we know is more powerful, with the same conviction that we fear the evil that we know is here, we'll get somewhere.
That was incredible. It just made me think of something that studying my own culture and ancestry and traveling to Africa and speaking to a lot of indigenous people, traveling
Mhm.
around the world, speaking to a lot of, tribes and things like that. I learned one thing that our ancestors, they would think of the world 7 generations ahead.
Mhm,
So I
mhm.
just want to pick up on what you said, that hopefully we can at least think of one generation ahead. Like, what kind of world are we leaving for the next generation?
This is the thing that we need to remember, is that is that uh, poverty, not just poverty, but challenges. The people at the bottom have always shaped culture.
Hmm,
Like even in the United States, our ideas of freedom didn't come from royalty.
hmm,
It came from the slaves that royalty had. See, the royalty, all they really knew about was was liberty. Liberty is the freedom that you have. The liberty is freedom that you have permission to have.
hmm,
You see what I mean? Because the king owned it all. They were only as free as the king allowed them to be. But they had slaves that were born as free as the buffalo, as free as the bird. They had the concepts of freedom. So the forward thinkers that like uh, Jefferson and those French high-minded people, they got it from the enslaved.
hmm,
The enslaved is what made civilization have what it had. The Our presidential seal, that's an Iroquois symbol. That
hmm,
that eagle with the quill of talons. I mean, with the talons full of a quill of arrows.
hmm,
One arrow is easily broken, many arrows are unbreakable. The idea for the idea for the Articles of the Confederation, that's because the Iroquois had articles that Ben Franklin said, these savages have a document. We don't even have one. We're colonies. We don't have one.
hmm,
We had the Articles of the Confederation. It led to the Constitution. We have a Constitution because of the Iroquois. Do you see what I mean? We believe in freedom because of enslaved people. We high five because of black people. We have rhythm because of black people. We have tribal relations because of the indigenous. Like
yeah,
everything that's great about this country comes from the people that were at the bottom, right? So we're at this place now. We're at this place now that we need to recognize what it is that we have and believe in it like we believe in the power of evil. Because
wow,
the advantage that evil has over goodness is that evil is not evil until it acts, right?
crazy.
If I give you the evil eye,
Hmm,
that don't mean nothing, right? Until I act, right? If I set something on fire or shoot you, at that point it becomes evil. But goodness is good without acting.
hmm,
You see what I mean? If you have a good heart, you can sit there and be at peace. But in the face of active evil, we need active goodness. And that's where we are now. We have the only thing that will stand the test of time. I'm saying, you see what I'm saying? There's no eternal shadows. There is eternal light, though.
wow.
You see what I mean? What we are experiencing is a blockage of the light, and we just have to remove the barrier.
And you got quotables upon quotables. When I go to edit this video, I'm gonna write them down, man. Um,
Please.
Mr. Joseph Wooten, let people know where they can find you and stuff like that. So I really want people to tune in.
Well, I like I said, I do my daily uh, thing on Instagram. That's just Joseph_Wooten. I'm sorry, on TikTok. TikTok is Joseph_Wooten, Wooten, and then I'm on Instagram at the letter J Wooten, the word soul, J Wooten soul. Joseph Wooten, the Hands of Soul. On Facebook, you can go to josephwooten.com. My wife and I have imatteryoumatter.com. That's
Nice.
where we do our philanthropy with veterans, young people, especially homeless veterans.
Mm.
I have a homeless veteran benefit coming on October the 16th. Every year I do a birthday slash Christmas concert. My birthday is December the 15th. It's going to be the 14th this year
Mm.
in Nashville. I'll be headed out with the Steve Miller Band in the middle of August. So go to stevemillerband.com. We're coming to a city near you. And I think that's it.
Yeah, you stay on the move. You stay on the move. God bless you. Keep moving. All the links will be in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the one, the only, always enlightening and the brilliant, the Hands of Soul himself, Joseph Wooten. Thank you so much, sir, for doing this. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Nas. And listen, call me anytime. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to be on video. Just call me if you just want to talk, man.
Thank you so
It's
much.
always good.
Thank you. That means the world to me. Thank you. God bless you, sir. And tell your wife hello for me.
Well, do and thank your mom for being a fan. I had no idea.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
man.
you, sir. Yep.
Appreciate you.
Later. God bless.
Prove to me that you are alive.